Melania apparently is finally mad. Finally mad. So if you remember the story here, um, Trump apparently had this affair with Stormy Daniels while Melania was pregnant with their son. I believe that's, if I remember correctly, that's where it went, right? So let's see. I probably will get interrupted for a commercial. I'll see if I can edit it out.
So, folks, I've said this before, many of you have as well, which is that when it comes to the marriage of old Donnie with his wife, it's not really about love, it's about transaction, although they really do seem to have a lot in common, such as going through a really bad time right now. And it's swirling around all of the investigations, and it's showing that no one around them is loyal, that they have no one they can trust, not even one another. And as the Stormy Daniels case builds up, Melania is freaking out, screaming that her life has been ruined by Stormy and all of this and all of that. And it's putting the fear in Trump because he's worried about her formally divorcing him and ruining his political career. This is something he's been worried about for a long time, but especially right now. And it's also a time, guys, where even the people that used to be loyal to Trump are breaking down. So whether it's his wife or his former vice president, it's not going well. We're going to get to Melania and Stormy and all of that, and how the Stormy case...
Melania actually could use this to her advantage right now by divorcing Trump, because that was Hillary's mistake, and I'll come back to that.
Is not only something that could put Trump away, and how the Melania defense isn't necessarily going to work, but critically, how all of them are breaking down, and they're just looking for an excuse to turn on Donnie.
Look, my thinking around this grand jury situation is that Pence needs to be subpoenaed in order to hold that piece of paper up and tell whatever his constituency is these days, I had to do this. I'm sorry. And then I think he ultimately will do what we saw at the Gridiron dinner, and he'll let it out. But he needs that piece of paper to hold up and say, I tried to fight this, I tried to do the right thing. And then he'll get in there and he'll protect his rear end by telling the truth so that he can't get jammed up on lying to a grand jury. What he's done at the Gridiron dinner here with pretending that he's miffed at Trump is really what he's learned from the master of trying to have it both ways. By that, I mean, it's Trump and his adherents who all along, the thread throughout the tenure and after the Trump tenure has been to have it both ways. We embrace democracy, for example, but we minimize what happened on January 6th. We love a free and open society, but we embrace Viktor Orban in Hungary as a model of government. We love rule of law and law and order, but not when the law is coming after us. I have to have this both ways to survive. Why has Pence suddenly grown a spine? Right now, at least this weekend, the wind is blowing against Trump in the form of potential indictments. He sees this coming. He's thinking, maybe I need to get in this kind of counter-Trump movement because the guy is going to get indicted.
So you can see, we've talked about...
Well, and on top of it, the entire reason he was selected as VP is because the evangelical vote came with him. And the minute he turns against Trump, Trump has already been losing the evangelical vote, but that will most certainly be the nail in the coffin for that entire voting population. If Pence was to either run or endorse DeSantis when he decides to announce, it's game over for Trump, which is sad that his base is so brainwashed that they would vote for him otherwise after everything that he's done. But you can see, like, there was another video that Christo has done about Trump being caught wearing a diaper at his most recent rally, and it was apparently a dirty diaper and everybody in the room could smell it. You can go look for that, but I just saw that one too. But this one is more interesting to me because there's some comparisons here to Melania and Hillary and the fact that they stand behind their men, right? It really, I think, um, you know, for most male voters, they were more concerned about the conspiracy theories about um, Hillary and the fact that like Daryl Issa and Devin Nunes and whoever else was. Oh, there was that guy from Utah. I remember him. He resigned from his position um, after Trump won, I think. He resigned, but he was one of the other guys that was like in charge of these investigations, these constant investigations into the emails that it turned up nothing. Um, the thing is, male voters will look at Hillary more for those FBI files and the stuff that was coming out in these congressional hearings that really resulted in nothing. But female voters look towards how she attacked I think it was 6 women that claimed that they had either been sexually harassed or had affairs with Bill Clinton. And the first one, I think, was Jennifer Flowers. I was just talking about this with a friend the other night. And that was being used against him when he was running in 92. And Hillary has been helping to demonize and attack these women the entire time, rather than setting the good example of when you're married to a womanizer who's cheating on you, you should get out of that marriage, because clearly that is not a loving marriage at this point.
Pence about how he's resisting the subpoena. But ultimately, I think this is a ploy. I'm not saying Pence is some secret hero, but for political and personal reasons, he probably wants a little bit of retribution against Trump. He feels that the only shot he's got at being president is if somehow Trump is forced out of the race. And then it becomes a bit more of a wild card. You know, you might say DeSantis is the favorite, but nothing is guaranteed if Trump goes out of the race. Like, it'll be a real mess if all of a sudden he disappears. But also, Pence probably doesn't like being almost hung by the Trump mob. And so he has to pretend to resist, but in reality, he will go when he's exhausted all of his legal options. He'll fight it to the Supreme Court, he'll eat the legal bills, he'll whine and complain about it, but then he'll go and he'll say everything because he doesn't want to go to jail for perjury. And he knows that weakening Trump helps him politically and, frankly, will probably make him look a little bit better in the history books, when it all comes down to it. But we have to...
Yeah, but they also, every single one of these, from all the coverage I've watched, every single one of these court cases that are going on, where they will ultimately result in an indictment. There's the Georgia, there's New York, but there's other stuff going on too. They are wearing bulletproof vests now. They are terrified that when he does get indicted, there's going to be protests and dangerous people showing up at the courthouse to potentially harm the witnesses. I just watched a video, I think it was yesterday, of how Michael Cohen is being threatened by Trump, that he's basically like trying to get his mob to come after Michael Cohen because he's a big witness in one of these cases. I think he's the big witness in the Stormy Daniels case, actually.
Shift over to Melania and Stormy and all of that, because critically, guys, this case is a big one, and we have some brand new details on the specific legal strategy to make this not just a misdemeanor but a true felony. And it connects to the fact that, you know, there's a big melange, a big mix, a big mess between Stormy and Melania and Michael Cohen and Trump and all of that. And this mix-up, which is a big one, traps Donald Trump, because it's very clear he was doing this for political and personal reasons, and it wasn't legal work by Cohen.
Weisselberg, how quote, how to figure out how to do it. Then Rudy confesses to how that was figured out, that it would be a pass-through. And then the business records reflect that as something totally different. So tell me which of those steps are potential crimes.
Sure. So let's start with the federal crime that Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to. And it's one of several crimes he pleaded guilty to, but it was basically campaign fraud. The idea was that $130,000, it was really being used as part of the campaign war chest because it was helping Donald Trump win the election by keeping this derogatory information out of the public sphere. But we know that Bill Barr put a stop to the case that could go forward as to the former president, saying, it's fine that Michael Cohen pled guilty to it, although he actually wanted that to be rescinded, but we're not going further. And it never was picked up by Merrick Garland. So that's why you have this state case into the same set of facts. And the simplest crime is one that is simply filing a false business record. And so the scheme that came up with to pay the $130,000 was to have it masquerade as legal fees. And that's going to be really strong evidence because there was no legal work being done by Michael Cohen. There was no reason to have these retainers month after month.
And keep in mind, Michael Cohen has already been convicted and served time for this.
I think will be a very strong part of the case. The problem is that's a misdemeanor under New York law. And so the thing that we don't know is the way in which that misdemeanor can be elevated to a felony. And under New York law, the way it can be elevated is if you commit that misdemeanor to further or to cover up another crime, whether that other crime is a felony or a misdemeanor, then the false business record charge is no longer a misdemeanor, it is a felony. Meaning, if you do the misdemeanor to help promote another crime, it's more serious. And what we don't know is exactly how Alvin Bragg is thinking about what he would charge. Probably some form of either a federal and or state election crime. And Nicole, I just wanted to read one thing because I think there is some New York Times reporting that is slightly different that suggests that this may be much more imminent than I had thought.
And I think that's critical. One of the arguments Trump could make is that this was like he was paying for legal services and blah, blah, blah. And they got all mixed up about what was exactly being done. But paying, filtering hush money, like being a middleman for hush money, like somebody pays you and then you pay a third party, that's not lawyers' work. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. A lawyer might help manage your finances. They might deliver a check on your behalf, but you're not going to pay a lawyer to then reroute the money into their own named bank account to then further reroute money to other people. And this show.
By the way, they use this sort of technique to quietly donate to campaigns too. If you look at some of the open secrets filings on, or even like the state filings or what, like if you go to this straight up to the FEC website and start looking at like the donations to certain campaigns, you'll find a lot of attorneys because they're able to mask who their clients are when they do it that way. And so he probably was trying to use that same technique, is my guess, to handle the situation. But like just logically looking at it, how is she getting paid from Michael Cohen, who had no relationship with her? And then Michael Cohen is getting paid by Donald Trump. You foolish MAGA people. You keep going out there and doing things on his behalf, acting violently on his behalf, having violent rallies, trying to put COVID all over everybody on his behalf. And this fool is operating like a mob boss. And everybody can see it except for you, I guess.
That the scandal is very clearly obstruction, and it's very clearly done in a way that has political and personal and maybe even tax implications as well, and isn't connected under any attorney-client privilege or legitimate legal work. But why this all matters with Melania, guys, is that at this moment, at this critical juncture, Melania is freaking out. She doesn't, she knows who Trump is. So I'm sure that when she married him, she baked in a bit of cheating. But she didn't bake in international embarrassment. And what this notes is that while, yes, the Melania, just to protect her dignity defense isn't going to fly, the reality is Donald Trump is terrified of Melania leaving, and she is furious.
Again, because I forgot how black and white this was.
That's really an interesting thought, that not only Melania, but probably Hillary too, accepted the fact that their spouses were going to cheat on them because they knew that they would get various benefits by being in the relationship anyway. So Hillary was already super ambitious. She wanted to be the first female president. She knew that by having her connection to Bill Clinton, she would be able to run for U.S. Senate. She'd be able to, advance her political career. So that sounds very much like a couple probably sleeping in separate bedrooms who have, a business partnership of these are the things we want to accomplish in life, and we can do these things together, but we no longer have a romantic relationship at this point. Melania's situation is even worse because she was pregnant while he was doing this. But she was an immigrant who she's basically got to come to America because of her relationship with Trump. So she has different motivations behind why she would stay with him. But now that she's had a child in the U.S., she technically does not need to be with him anymore. I don't know if she's become a citizen yet, but once you have had a child in the U.S., you have a solid way of becoming a citizen. It takes a while, though. It takes a while, but she still has legitimate reasons to have a green card to be here. But I don't think she works, right? So she doesn't have a job. She was first lady for a while, but I don't know what she did as first lady other than put up really hideous Christmas decorations and ruin the rose garden, right? She destroyed the rose garden that had historic plants that were planted all the way back to Eleanor Roosevelt, and she fucking destroyed it. So clearly she's not the greatest thinker, right? But it's probably pretty humiliating that he cheated on her while she was pregnant. All right, let's go.
At the time. During the campaign, Michael Cohen played a central role in two similar schemes to purchase the rights to stories, each from women who claimed to have had an affair with individual one, Donald Trump, as to suppress the stories and thereby prevent them from influencing the election. With respect to both payments, Michael Cohen acted with the intent to influence the 2016 presidential election. Cohen coordinated his actions with one or more members of the campaign, including through meetings and phone calls about the fact, nature, and timing of the payments. In particular, as Cohen himself has now admitted, with respect to both payments to both women, he acted in coordination with and at the direction of individual one, Donald Trump. The federal government investigated and already found that
some things should be complicated. Shipping isn't one of them.
I hate the commercials. I hate the commercials. All right, let's go.
corroboration that has gone on, but the feds are the ones that created the playbook to prosecuting Donald Trump for these crimes.
Well, I think, I think the feds had to line up what they felt were their best cases. And I think they chose not to elevate this particular case. But in terms of corroboration, one of the things that's fallen out of some of the analysis around this, Nicole, is that there's also a tape. Michael Cohen either turned on his iPhone in an office with Donald Trump, or he wore a wire. I think he just had his phone on. But in that recording, he is discussing these payments with Trump. And Trump is heard on this tape saying to Michael Cohen, go discuss that with Alan, in reference to Alan Weisselberg, the CFO. So the corroboration in this isn't only hearsay. They have hard evidence, like they do in Georgia, of Trump on tape asking someone to commit a crime. And nothing of substance went on in the Trump organization at all that involved money that Donald Trump didn't sign off on if the sums were significant or the consequences were significant. The other thing in terms of the motivation is I don't think he was only worried about his campaign potentially getting blown up. I think he was also worried about his marriage getting blown up. Donald Trump has a long history of cheating on his wives. And I think he probably was more afraid at that point of Melania Trump than he was of the electorate. So he had a motivation to try to get this out of the way. I think the law
again effectively act as a political donation in the final days of a campaign, which would be a campaign violation, blah, 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 obstruction, all of that. But he's doing it to spare the feelings of his wife. But that's not going to fly because it's also connected. You spare the feelings of your wife, maybe, but you do it in a way that also protects your campaign, because Trump was and likely still is worried that the optics of Melania formally leaving him. We've talked about how she emotionally has left him, but formally leaving him and the media coverage would destroy his political career. It would absolutely destroy him, especially when you see DeSantis looking happy with his wife and all of that. It would wreck him. And so Melania has made it clear that Stormy Daniels, this story has ruined her life. Trump has ruined her life. She wants it gone. But the fact of the matter is it's going nowhere. And the entire trial now is going to be set on her because the legal defense for Trump is to embarrass his wife. It's absolutely ridiculous. Don't feel sorry for Melania, though. She knew what she got into. She got into it big. This is the price for marrying a monster.
Yeah.